Councilmember Escobar is absent. Councilmember Hodge.
Here.
Councilmember Real.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. Would the city clerk mind reading the public comments portion?
This is a time for the public to address the City Council on closed session items only. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. All members of the public are encouraged to participate. It is unlawful to disturb or delay the council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. The City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. Please direct your questions and comments to the City Council.
Okay. Having that being read, is there anybody that's going to address the council?
Not at this time, sir.
We're going to close this portion and go into adjourn into closed session. Thank you. All right. We're going to convene now for our regular city council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, and Calexico Finance Authority meeting. And call to order.
Mayor Hurtado is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Pacheco.
Here.
Councilmember Escobar.
Here.
Councilmember Hodge.
Here.
Councilmember Real.
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Figueroa, would you lead us?
Ready, begin.
Reading our mission statement, then we'll have the invocation.
Together, we pledge to provide effective beneficial services in a courteous and respectful manner to improve the quality of life for all in our unique border community. Viva Calexico!
Please stand for invocation.
You're doing squats here.
Amen. Well, Father in heaven, first of all, God, we're so grateful that we can gather here freely tonight, Lord. And God, we as a people of Calexico desire to acknowledge you as our God, as creator of this universe. And God, we know this to be true, that you are mindful of us. So mindful of us, God, that you would send your son Jesus to die for our sins. And God, tonight we would ask for wisdom from above for those that you've entrusted as leadership in the city of Calexico. And God, we thank you that we just celebrated 110 years, Lord. God, you have been faithful to this city, and God, for that we give you thanks. And God, so tonight we ask that you would be present, and God, that your wisdom would be poured out. And we ask this again in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
You may be seated.
Thank you. Mr. Campos, any closed session announcements?
City Council meeting closed session, items 1, 2, and 3. We received direction, but no reportable actions were taken. Thank you.
Thank you. These proceedings may be viewed at our website, www.calexicoca.gov, this coming Friday. We have some presentations.
Also,
Everyone.
we also need to approve of the agenda, if we could also get a motion for that.
Well,
Have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
so move. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Presentations. Earth Day. April 22nd, 2018, and Arbor Day will be on April the 28th. So we will do first a proclamation. Earth Day, whereas the global community now faces extraordinary challenges such as global health, safety issues that affect all people, regardless of race, gender, income, age, or geography. And whereas on Earth Day on April 22nd and Arbor Day, April 28th, provide a special time to draw people together in appreciation of their mutual home, planet Earth, and bring a global feeling of mutual dependence on each other, focusing not on the past, but on the future.
Whereas Calexico must take great pride in the quality of our natural environment, in particular the trees of our community that enrich our lives, such as increasing property value, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. Trees also can produce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And
whereas Calexico recognizes the need to protect and plant trees as a valuable resource for preserving the beauty of our community and promoting good stewardship of our natural environment for future generations, and
whereas the purpose of Earth Day/Arbor Day celebration on Saturday, April 28th, 2018 is to emphasize the importance of preserving our natural environment through recycling, waste reduction, and resource conservation, and whereas the City of Calexico recognizes the work of the Calexico Health and Safety Community Coalition, their efforts in helping to improve the quality of life in our city by organizing the city's first Earth and Arbor Day celebration with health, safety, and environmental community fair. And
Now therefore be it resolved that I, Louis Pacheco, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Calexico, do hereby proclaim April 28, 2018 as Calexico's Earth and Arbor Day in Calexico, California, and urge all citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, and businesses to support, join, and celebrate with a health, safety, and environmental community fair that will help Calexico, California be a safer, healthier, more eco-friendly, and caring community in which we all live, work, and play. It is witnessed whereof I hereto affix my signature and official seal on the City of Calexico this 18th day of April 2018.
do we have any trees so they can receive the?
Mr. Gonzalez.
300 trees.
We're going to take, what, you need everybody? Everybody, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Honorable Mayor, Council, staff, members of the public, we're here to invite you to the first Calexico Earth and Arbor Day celebration. This is a very great celebration because Calexico really needs prevention. Prevention on safety, health, the environment, especially that for the first time we're going to have both McGruff and Sparky the dog joining us live at the park. They're going to be arriving by helicopter. We're also going to have a boxing event, kids boxing against crime. We're going to have people from San Diego, Yuma, Mexicali. They're going to be kids fighting against crime. One of the things that we want the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem to be there is we're going to honor Alex Campillo. Alex Campillo was a past mayor of Calexico. He was the one that brought Kennedy Gardens. Kennedy Gardens is not just another neighborhood. You remember Kennedy Gardens was 299 homes were given to people from Mexico, braceros. No money, no credit, they just had a dream to be the next example immigrants. And so they allowed us to come over here, and that was Kennedy Gardens. The name Kennedy Gardens actually comes from Kennedy, who never promised anything. He challenged the people. Gardens was the challenge. You see, if we could plant gardens in the middle of the desert, right next to the second largest canal in the continent, we failed. To be honest, we failed, but we're still trying. We're still trying. These are the kind of events that we're bringing because we want to make Kennedy Gardens like it was in the beginning. It was what they call it, a garden in heaven. It was full of trees. 40% of the neighborhood is dedicated to green space. 40%. You don't get that today. So we invite you there to be there. It's going to be fun. We hope you all be there. We're asking the Mayor Pro Tem to sign a certificate for Mr. Campillo. It's a neighborhood certificate, but we always have the Mayor or Mayor Pro Tem to sign it. We'll leave it with the city manager. And Mr. Campillo is pretty excited to be honored. If you remember, I was too small, but they say he was the leader of several organizations, especially the Chicano movement. So he's pretty excited, and you're all invited. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Our next presentation is for the Veterans Appreciation Month. It'll be this May 2018. Whereas the people of Imperial Valley appreciate and admire the thousands of men and women who served in the armed forces to protect and preserve their country and the freedoms enjoyed by all Americans. And whereas in war, international conflicts, and peacekeeping missions, men and women have been wounded, taken as prisoners, and died in the line of duty. And
whereas veterans possess a wide variety of valuable qualities, including experience, maturity, leadership, and loyalty, that make them ideal candidates for employment. And
whereas the County of Imperial is committed to ensuring that veterans receive the services and programs to which they are entitled, and to promoting employer interest in hiring veterans. And
Whereas during Veteran Appreciation Month, state and local agencies increase employer awareness about the benefits of hiring a veteran. And
now therefore, I, Louis Pacheco, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Calexico, hereby proclaim the month of May 2018 as Veterans Appreciation Month. I hereunto affix my signature and the official seal of the City of Calexico on the 18th day of April 2018. Thank you.
who,
No
veterans,
No
officers, no veterans?
We have veterans in the audience.
Veterans.
Ben?
You're, oh, yeah, it's true, Ben. Well, Ben and Beaver, I guess. B&B. Well, at least receive the plaque from the mayor. Don't be rude. Don't be shy. Pacheco can take a picture.
One word. Hey, photo.
B&B.
Photo shoot. Come on.
Very good, Ben.
I'll give some give all.
Okay.
We're going to honor an author in the Valley. Valley is a
Yeah.
Black Valley author, Mr. Silva,
Is he here?
Simon Silva, distinguished artist, and he's got some books out too.
Yes,
He's not here, but I think Ms.
he's a
Towler
great
can-
writer.
can pick it up. Whereas Simon Silva grew up in Hoteville and attended local public schools and is a product of the Imperial Valley. And whereas Simon is one of 11 children in a family of farmers and grew up as a migrant student and relied heavily on his artistic skills and interest to cope with what was at times a difficult childhood. And whereas Simon knows firsthand the importance of education, and he is the only person in his family who have graduated from both high school and college.
Whereas Simon provided some funding to paint the Border Metamorphosis mural in Calexico, and whereas he has provided professional development training to many teachers, students, and migrant parents, many from the city of Calexico. And
Whereas Simone Silva is committed to continue to serve Imperial County and enhance education and nurture creativity in his county. And whereas Simone graduated from the prestigious Art Center College of Design in California with his bachelor's degree in art. And
Whereas Simon is a well-known artist, creative crusader, author, and speaker who travels around the country presenting to educators, students, parents, and business people. And
Now there be it resolved that the city council of the city of Calexico, by token of this proclamation, can't even say the word, proclamation, and on behalf of the residents of Calexico, congratulate Simon Silva on the occasion of being honored as Distinguished Artist on April 25th, 2018, at the Carmen Durazo Cultural Arts Center. Further, be it resolved that the mayor and city council members extend their best wishes for success and fulfillment in all his future endeavors. In witness, I hereunto affix my signature and the official seal of the city of Calexico on the 20th day of April, 2018. Congratulations.
To let you know, Mr. Silva will be in Calexico on Wednesday of next week. We are having a reception at the unveiling of the leaf for the Distinguished Artist Wall. It'll be from 6 to 9. You're all welcome to join us.
thank you.
Continuing on now with our regular meeting.
where'd you get that?
Would the city clerk please read the portion of public comments?
This is the time for the public to address the city council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. If the item you wish to comment on is on the consent agenda, please comment now. The city council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. If the item you wish to comment on is on the public portion of the agenda, we will take your comment when we get to the item on the agenda. Please direct your questions and comments to the city council. Gloria Guzman.
Hi, good evening, members of the city. My name is Gloria Guzman, and I was here about a month ago. I came in to kind of present a current problem, overpopulation of cats, and the possible solution would be implementing a trap-neuter return program to control the cat population. So just briefly, I came in to convince you guys that it is crucial and it is needed, and it can also be successful and sustainable if and only if I get everyone's support, and that also includes the community. The statistics from the animal control facility show that between 6 to 10 cats were being trapped and transferred to a rescue group outside of the city, and However, a lot of these cats were unfriendly, so they're also known as feral cats, better known as community cats. These cats are, again, non-adoptable. They're not used to being in a four-door room and or being petted by people. As a result, they were being not necessarily transferable, yet euthanized. I am aware that budget is an issue, but it all depends how far and how you will want to go about it. The money that is currently being used for the impoundment, sheltering, the kennel, the space, the food, the disposal fee, including euthanasia for these cats, should be used for spay and neuter instead. The current hold, 48 to 72 hours period, is a lot of waste, again, in space, food, litter, and power, and ultimately is not going anywhere. Many cats do not make it out alive from the shelter, and that is what kind of brings me back. It's not only upsetting, but it's not the best solution. I am hopeful that there's a solution, especially because our current police chief has been very supportive. Our city manager as well also took it into consideration, and I hope to get each and every one of you, at least with the higher votes for this. Not only will we educate children, adults, and seniors, but it will also be cost effective. How? Again, the money that's being used for the transfer fee can be used for spay and neuter, and the cat will be returned. And after all, it's stabilizing and reducing the feral cat population, which is the main reason why people keep calling and they keep, making these complaint calls. So just, I hope to get the support from everyone, including the animal control officers, as they can also be trained. And training, there's multiple resources online, and there's statistics that show that this program, it is effective. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guzman.
James Beaver?
My name is James Beaver, Calexico Police Commissioner Advisory Board, and a resident of Calexico. I'm here actually to thank the fire department, the police department, and the city manager for allowing us in this health and safety environment fair the property. They have backed us. I know Mr. Escobar has been to our meetings. If it wouldn't have been for all of your cooperations, this would be been a very limited program, but we have health department. So we invite that everybody go. I've never seen a bigger effort from community, from the Imperial County, from the district. They're all cooperating for this event. So I've been to two others in the past, but I've never seen this much participation by our leaders. And I just want to thank all of you. We hope to see you there on the 28th. Thank you.
Mr. Beaver.
Jesse Garcia?
Will there be singing involved?
Good evening. Jesse Garcia, 600 block of Lincoln Street. Today I'm here to discuss crosswalks, much needed crosswalks for the students. On March the 15th, around 8 in the morning, my nephew was crossing Blair and Nieto towards Main School when he was hit by a hit-and-run driver. He was knocked down. Luckily, he was transported to El Centro Hospital by ambulance, luckily with minor injuries. So what I did, I parked there at 7 in the morning after dropping off my son at the high school to see for myself how the traffic is. So it was light at first, very few students. But around 8 in the morning, I couldn't believe the traffic, heavy traffic, plus the students. None of the vehicles ever stopped to help to let the students cross. Nobody. What we need at Blair and Neto is a crosswalk with some signs. Also, on C.K. Clark, because I noticed there are students on that side also crossing. And because the first stop is not until you get to, I forgot the name of the street, where San Diego State is at, that's the first stop. So many cars speed through there. And luckily my nephew wasn't seriously injured, but one day something worse is going to happen. So we need crosswalks on those streets, C.K. Clark and Neto, for those students. Also, another crosswalk, years back, it used to be called it used to be called Railroad Boulevard, and it was a small road, 2-lane, very little traffic. Students used to cross from the east side of the tracks to the west side to go to Mains. There used to be a crosswalk and a crossing guard. Now it's Railroad Boulevard. It's double, twice as long, 4 lanes, a lot more traffic, and there are still kids crossing, but there's no crosswalks and there's no crossing guard for those kids.
Is that where
Before it was only Main
where the
School.
railroad is at?
What's that?
You're speaking about where the railroad is?
Yes.
Grant.
On Grant?
No, on Sheridan and Cesar Chavez.
Because Eto and 98, I believe, has a crosswalk. Is that not, it does, correct?
There's no Eto in the, you're talking about Blair, probably.
Blair,
Yeah, and the crosswalk on that
he
one
means on
is
Blair.
all the way up to 98.
It's heavy.
So it's still a long stretch from 98 to the nearest stop sign, which is where San Diego State is at in that corner. Okay, now going back to Cesar Chavez. Now it's 4 lanes, a lot more traffic, twice as much traffic, and there's no crosswalk and there's no crossing guard for those students. But now it's not only main school students, it's also main school and William Moreno Junior High School students that cross through there. They don't have no safety right there either.
but if they're just maybe, and if they're walking from on 98, right?
It's not 98, it's Sheridan, crossing over the railroad track.
We're talking about 2 different places now.
Yeah, to where the railroad track is now.
Yeah, but Sheridan, if you look at the old National Guard, there was a crosswalk that was there.
Sharon's the one that runs through Vincent,
Yeah.
Correct, okay.
and then goes straight and you hit Main.
Okay.
Yeah, also I heard from railroad police, it's illegal now to walk across those tracks, which students are doing. And well, I think they turned their back on those students. I mean, they don't notice them because they're crossing the tracks every day.
Well, they have to.
Yeah, or else they have to go all the way around on Highway 98, which is now safer because they notice there's sidewalks now, but still too far.
Mr. Garcia, is the issue with having crosswalks with some crossing guards to assist?
Well, crossing guards, since it's a block away from the school, maybe they won't, because that's a school district thing, maybe they're not going to put, so as long as there's a crosswalk with signs, maybe that will help, hopefully. Maybe then the cars will stop, slow down, or whatever, because there's no crosswalk. I took my phone, and I was there from 7 a.m. until 8:15, recording. I got lots of videos of the traffic. I want to share it to all of you, but I got here late. I also got videos of Sheridan and Cesar Chavez, kids crossing with nobody helping them. Good thing that many of them had their parents with them when adult, but some of them were by themselves.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Dale, could you talk to Chief maybe and
Caltrans, Chief.
look at the possibility of the areas of the concern for the crosswalks? I don't know. If it's going to be our jurisdiction? Or
The area on Cesar Chavez and Sheridan, is that where you're discussing?
More challenging, but he mentioned 3.
Yeah, I got those.
Blair and Ethel make
Well, I was going to address this in the city manager's report, but we have 2 projects. One project is the widening of Cesar Chavez, and the entire striping is going to change. So I'll look at the crosswalk in that area, and we can add one if we need to. We also have another project that we're working on, adding some crosswalks and some signage. So I'll look at those and see if those are included in those intersections. And if not, we may be able to add them.
Yes. All right, I got a few more things if I can. Also, 700 block of Pierce, that's right between Grant and Lincoln. It's a small block, but there's no street light there, and it's very dark and dangerous crossing through there. There's an alley, and this is probably the third time I come to the city council for request of a street light. We just need one street light to illuminate that section. The people who live there have told me many times that they would like a street light there, because it's bad at night, very dark. And I have to cross there on my wheelchair when I go visit my sister-in-law, and I take my flashlight, because it's pretty bad.
Mr. Garcia, I would like to encourage you to talk to Public Works. That's the proper forum. Public Works, Liliana Falamir in Public Works, and we can maybe look at that. But in the council,
I called the IID about that, somebody from the IID, and I was told to bring it to the city council.
Okay.
Also, where I live, my block, 600 block of Lincoln, I also got pictures of that, but in the center of the block of 600 block, where in the middle of the road, the streets, the sewer line is buried. Well, in that section, it's sinking. You can see the cracks, and it's kind of, it's kind of sinking, and now the neighbors have been telling me about that. They're worried that if something is not done, it's going to get worse. It looks real bad right now.
Thank you. I think we'll,
yeah, thank you.
we got the address, we got the
There's
area.
one more thing,
Okay.
if I have time. Rodriguez Park. Rodriguez Park, the sprinklers around the tennis court has been broke a long time ago. I've been volunteering at that park for many, many years, irrigating the park, sprinklers and all that. Now there's a section, I don't know how come it wasn't connected to the timer. I have to turn it on manually. But I can't do that no more because the pipe broke. So it hasn't been repaired. It was repaired once, but it didn't last long. So it's broken again. Summer's here, the grass is going to start getting dry. Many years ago, there were kids that would set the grass afire because it was so dry. We don't want that to happen again. And the bathrooms at that park been locked down for years. So I've seen buses of school kids from other towns that come here for some activities. They stop at the park for have a little break. And many kids run to the bathroom just to find out that they're locked. And that's bad. So I hope something could be taken care of from all these things I said.
Thank you. You gave us a good list to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comment?
Yes. Mr. Gonzalo Gerardo.
Good evening, Honorable City Council, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just here to tell you guys that as the interim chief, I want to thank Mr. Dale publicly because I already thanked him, but you guys need to know what he did. In the 27 years that I've been with the department full-time, and for the last 12 years, I've been an administrator, and I've been overseeing the public safety dispatchers. Not one city manager who was invited has ever attended the National 911 Dispatchers Telecommunications Week luncheons. This year, they decided to have a dinner, and when I invited Mr. Dale, he went ahead and he accepted. My dispatchers really appreciate it. They could not believe that you were there because they've never felt that important because city managers in the past were too busy to go. And so I commend you, Mr. Dale. The guys really, well, the girls, not guys. The girls and one guy really appreciated you. And that 50-50 raffle, drawing ticket that they had, you made a dispatcher real happy because he went and he bought 50-50 raffle drawing tickets for the dispatchers and he handed them out. And the dispatcher, Veronica Valenzuela, who happens to be a very good dispatcher, won that drawing that night. So again, from the bottom of our hearts, thanks for showing your support for these people who go unappreciated in their line of work, especially the dispatchers. Everybody always praises the firefighters and the police officers, but I mean, the dispatchers are the ones to answer the phone. So thank you very much, sir. And I'm going to get off before my 3 minutes are up. And have a good meeting, guys.
It was my honor. Thank you. And the interim chief did pay for my meal, so I just want you to know that.
I was gonna say, you're not one to turn down dinner, I know that.
Moving next to comments from city councilmen. Mr. Hodge, any comments?
No.
Mr. Real?
No, I'm sorry. Just wanted to state that,
You're too late.
nope, not too late. Overall, the 110th anniversary was a success, and I want to thank everybody's support on that. And the list is long, so it was an enjoyable week. Thank you.
Mr. Real?
Just happy birthday, Calexico. 110 years here, and just hope it's here another 500, hopefully. So, and that's about it.
Thank you. Escobar?
Two quick comments. We have a long agenda. The
Is that one?
Imperial Valley International Trade Seminar is going up now and tomorrow, hosted by IBDC. Lots of interesting topics on logistics, international trade, different countries, Canada, Mexico, Asia, Middle East. It's happening all day, half day today, all day tomorrow at Old Eucalyptus Schoolhouse if you're interested. I'm actually going to be a moderator for one of the sessions tomorrow. And last but not least, I lost a very, very, very good friend to pancreatic cancer on Good Friday. It really touched me hard. Today is would have been his 51st birthday. And what I've been more and more learning and getting in depth with this vicious disease is we're here one day and we're not here the next. So as a personal recommendation, make a phone call to a nephew or a cousin or a grandson or a relative that you haven't talked to in a while. If you have issues with somebody in the past, maybe make amends. Just think about things because we're here today and we're gone the next. So appreciate life.
Very good.
Appreciate life.
Very good.
Thank you. I just have two. Mr. Figueroa, thank you for providing that workshop on the cannabis. I think there was some information that people were well drawn to, and it was informative. And I think the summit meeting was a feather in our cap, providing all the mayors of the county and Mexicali and Yuma and our neighbors a well-informed forum. Thank you for organizing that. Okay, Mr. City Manager.
I got a number of items. I'm going to try to go through them quickly. I may need some help, assistance from the audience. So, the first one I would also like to commend Mr. Miguel Figueroa for the Border Mayors Summit that went off without a hitch. It was a great event, and I'd just like to commend you and for that. So I would also, right now, I'd just like to have him speak about that and a couple of other items, and then I'll need a couple other items to talk about.
Sure. I think one of the most important items that we want to touch on tonight is, one of the things that we've talked about is that the city of Calexico is starting a new chapter. Although we have a lot of matters that need to be addressed that are sensitive to our finances, that are sensitive to our public services, we acknowledge, and this city council has acknowledged, that it does start at the top. And if we're able to have a strong leadership team, we will be able to address and pretty much fix all the issues that we need to have addressed here in our city. So with that said, I'm very happy to share and introduce to you the newest member of our executive team. We believe that, City Manager Dell and myself believe that if we are able to bring in experienced, knowledgeable individuals to the city of Calexico, we will be able to move faster on a number of things that this community has been asking for many years. So with that said, I want to introduce our new Human Resources Manager, Ms. Denise Garcia. Denise comes from the city of Hopeville, in which she provided a great number of services and work to the city of Hopeville. We are grateful to have her now with us. And as part of her duties, she is championing new efforts in order to establish some projects that Mr. Dell and I have that are working with her on that will vastly improve the Human Resources and Risk Management Office in City Hall. So again, Denise, welcome. Thank you for accepting the job, and we look forward to working with you.
Welcome.
Second, it's been touched on 2 times, the Border Mayor Summit. I want to just emphasize the importance of making sure that the city of Calexico can put together and organize events where we can bring in our partners. I like to call them partners because if we are able to succeed in our region, it's going to be because of the other members of our community that make something happen, and that is our sister cities, including those in Mexico. And this was a very important event in which we were able to bring the majority of them to the table and discuss a regional agenda. There is nothing that we'll be able to get done by ourselves here in the city. We need our partners to step up, and that's what we accomplished. We look forward to working with them in future events that will enhance and follow up on the things that were approved and talked about that day. So again, thank you. In particular, I want to acknowledge my city council members that attended and contributed to the discussion that day. So thank you so much for attending and being there. The third item that I want to report on is that as part of the celebrations that took place for the anniversary of our city on Saturday, we had a special guest show up to the gala, and that is Assemblyman Eduardo Garcia. Knowing our Assemblyman, we knew that he would find the time to be there and acknowledge the celebrations of the city. So with that said, around, I would like to say 10:30ish, 11 o'clock, Mr. Garcia made his grand entrance and presented a proclamation. We are very thankful to the Office of the Assemblyman and his representatives. He has done a lot for our city, for our county, and for our region as a whole. I'm not going to go into the projects and the resources that he has brought down to the city of Calexico, but we are very thankful for everything he has done, and he showed a lot of class by being able to join us and presenting a proclamation to the city of Calexico. So with that said, those were my items. City Manager Dell.
Okay, I have a few more. I'd like to invite our Fire Chief, Diego Favila, to discuss the status of the ambulance rate study.
Good evening, community and honorable city council. Today, I'd like to just kind of inform and to also say thank you to the city council for allowing us to do the EMS rate study. As you guys know, on January 24th of this year, you guys gave permission to the city manager to go ahead and do the EMS rate study. So once we started doing it, I was kind of taken back on how far and how long it's been since the EMS rate study's been done. It's been since 1992. So since 1992, we haven't addressed the issues with our ambulance. So piggyback on Mr. Figueroa's comments about how we're going to make the city successful is by obviously doing things right. There has been several attempts at it. It just, for whatever reason, it stopped at the council level. So that's why I'm saying thank you to you guys for actually, doing what's right and leading this forward. So with that said, we hired Wilden Financial Services, and they're the ones doing our ambulance rate study. We're probably, since January to this month, we are all complete with pretty much all the data information. We're working on the final. We should be looking at something maybe, if not, hopefully our next city council meeting, the previous one, has been in conjunction with the water rate study, I believe. And it looks promising. It looks very promising for the rate study, the user fee study for the city of Calexico. So that's kind of what I just want to say, thank you. It's moving forward. It's almost done. Hopefully, we're looking for a presentation, hopefully on our next city council meeting. Any questions on it?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'd also like to announce the farmers market on April 21st. I think Heffernan is also doing a Let's Move Calexico run, an obstacle course, and the council is doing a bike event. Did you want to speak to this, Sandra?
How many miles?
I'm not sure. Do you know how many miles?
So on Saturday, we're having the last farmers market of the season. Our farmers market season is from December through April, and that is when we have local produce. So we are at the end of the local produce of the farming. So in this last market, we partnered with Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District, and they're going to be sponsoring I believe it's 3 kilometers. It's not 5. It was changed because we have a second activity that I'll tell you about in a second. They're having the run, and right after the run, there's an obstacle course. So the people participating in the run will finish the run, and then they will do the obstacle course in the park. As part of that same market, and to try to draw more people to our market, we're also partnering with the Consulado de Mexico, and they're doing a rodada. That's a bike-a-thon for children. So they're going to ride their bikes from the Mexican consulate to the library. So it's going to be a very active morning, and of course, we're going to have fresh produce and lots of vendors. It's a Dia del Niño Health and Family Literacy Fair. There's going to be a lot of information for health, a lot of information about literacy, family literacy, and there's going to be a lot of fun. The Mexican consulate has lots of raffles and lots of prizes. They're going to be giving away bikes and toys and all sorts of things. So I invite you to participate, and I invite you to let your circle of friends know so that they can participate too.
What date is it again?
It's this Saturday. The run starts on-site registration starts at 7, and the run starts at 7:45. The rodada for children, registration starts at 9, and the actual bike-a-thon starts at 9:30, and the farmer's market runs from 10 to 2. So we will be there, yes. We will be there from 7 in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
In the races, will they be throwing that
No, it's not a color run.
the color run?
It's just a run. Mhm.
You want to also report on your meeting that you just attended at the state level?
Sure. I just attended the California Library Services Board meeting in Sacramento. As you know, I was appointed by the governor in April. I was reappointed. I had already been appointed 2 years ago. So I participated in the meeting. We discussed changes to the regulations that were adopted in the 1970s, and they needed to be updated. We talked about we had a strategic planning session so that we revised our mission statement, and we set goals for the next 3 years. It was a very productive meeting, and I was very honored to be there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandra. Also, Councilman Real, I don't know if you recall this, but several months ago, you brought me downtown and showed me some sidewalks that need to be replaced and that don't look very safe. We have a project coming up that's almost complete in the design phase that include those sidewalks to be replaced. Also some ADA ramps downtown and some crosswalks that quite possibly could be what Mr. Garcia had discussed. And I'll look and see if those intersections are included in that. That project will be coming up in the next 2 months or so for construction. The new street project, I don't know if everybody's seen, there's a layout in the back there that shows what streets are going to be rehabilitated as in this next overlay project. So there's several streets, and they're scattered around town. These are our next project, Measure D project funded. One of these streets in particular is Grant Street between Cesar Chavez and 111. That's going to become a major street that's going to be used when the new port of entry opens in July. So if you would like to know what streets are going to be repaired, there's a map in the back. The water pipeline on Grant is nearing completion, and so that will be finished soon. And the work continues at Cordova Park to install the new gym equipment there, gymnasium stuff. There's like a zip line and some other things. It's going to be really nice. So that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Dale. Mr. Figueroa. Moving along to the consent agenda, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda items?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 4 to 11.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So move, pass. Potential action items. We're going to skip number 12 because the mayor is not here. Item number 13.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. We have Mr. Kevin Burnett from Wildan Financial to present us the proposed water and sewer rates. I think we may need the laptop and the screen.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Burnett with Wildan Financial Services. I was the project manager for this rate study, so we wanted to present our preliminary findings to you tonight and get some direction of where we go from here. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview of the rate study process itself first, and then we'll get into some more of the specifics of this particular rate study. So in general, the purpose of a rate study is to evaluate the sufficiency of your existing water and sewer rates to provide for the funding of current and future operations and maintenance costs and capital projects, meeting minimum reserve level requirements. So, for example, if this was a perfect world, you would send out your bills would get paid, and you would have the revenue in hand before you had to pay your bills. That's unfortunately not the way the world works, so you need to make sure that you've got enough revenues and funds available that you can pay your bills while you're waiting for your customers to pay their bills. So that's one of the things that we wanted to take into account. The second item up there is meet legal obligations associated with outstanding debt. So you do have a debt issuance outstanding, and as part of that debt issuance, you made a promise to the creditors that you would have sufficient funds on hand to cover your debt service on an annual basis. So we wanted to make sure that the financial plan reflected those requirements. Yes.
Which debt is this? Are you talking about the loan, the $3.5 billion that were loaned to general fund, or which?
No, this is a water.
The water bonds. And then the final piece is we want to make sure that we develop rates that are going to be sufficient to generate the revenue that you need going forward. So that's the general process for a rate study. As we looked at the rate study for you all as well, one of the other items that we wanted to look at was there improvements that could be made to the existing water and sewer rate structure to give the customers greater control over their monthly bills and promote equity within the rate structures themselves. So we'll get into that in a little bit. In terms of the current rate study process and where we've been working very closely with your city manager to make sure we understood the objectives of the city, making sure we understood all the data that was provided to us, that we interpreted it correctly, and that we were meeting the financial goals and needs of the city. So where we're at right now is, as I said, we're presenting the preliminary financial plans and rates. We are looking for feedback from you all to continue the process going forward, which would be to send out the Proposition 218 notices to notify the public of what the changes that are being proposed. We'll get the direct mailings out. We'll have a public hearing on that, and then the anticipated effective new date for rates would be July 1st.
I have a question.
Yes.
The last time the city did a rate study, was it your company that did it? Do you know?
I do not know
You're
that.
not sure? Okay.
It was they bought the company that did the one.
So it'd be the same company, just different name, pretty
Yes.
much. And did you actually see the last rate study that was done?
I have not, no.
Okay, so you don't use any of that information?
No, I came in with fresh eyes, worked very closely with the city manager to understand what the current goals and objectives were to make sure that we addressed all of those. So this was a fresh set of eyes, as they say, to the rates and the structure. So we are proposing a water revenue increase, and why we're proposing that, we've got increasing operational costs. As you're familiar with your own household budgets, costs are going up over time. The city's budget's no different. Chemical costs are going up, electricity costs are going up. We've got a land lease for the treatment plant site that needs to get paid. And then the bigger ticket items are the capital projects, and that's true for any system that we look at. It's especially true here where we've got a water system that's over 100 years old. So there are significant replacement needs that need to be done in the pipeline. You know, noted the new clarifier and filter system there, raw water reservoir improvements. One of the things that we wanted to make sure we did in this financial plan was we spread it out as much as we could to try and minimize the rate impact to the customers. There's certainly a lot of capital that needs to be taken care of, but we did our best to spread that out as much as we could and still be responsive to the needs of the system itself. So these are the revenue recommendations for water. I will make a distinction here that we're using the term revenue recommendation as opposed to rate increase. Revenue increase versus revenue increase. So what the revenue increase is saying is that overall the water system needs 5% more revenue in 2018-19. One of the ways that we could address that would be to raise everybody's rates by 5%. All other things being equal, if all rates go up by 5%, you're going to generate 5% more revenue. As I said earlier, we wanted to do some changes to the rate structure, give more accountability, more control to the citizens, and make it more equitable. So in some cases, depending upon how you change your water use going forward, you could see less than a 5% increase, or you could see more than a 5% increase in your bill. But the overall revenue increase that we're targeting for next year is 5%, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5 thereafter. So it's a little bit higher than what we're projecting the inflation to be on your operating expenses. And again, this is a reflection of the system maintenance that we need to do and the significant capital projects. We're not anticipating to take on any debt to accomplish any of those water-related projects, though. So if we look at your cash flow projections as it is now, so this is assuming no rate increases, but no revenue increases other than growth in the system, and then increases to your operations and maintenance, the capital needs as has been laid out by the city manager, and your ongoing debt service. You can see every year for the next 5 years, if we don't do anything, you have a negative cash flow, and by year 3, 2020, 2021, your end of year cash reserves are actually in the negative as well. And then we've got the targeted reserves there, which I talked about before. That's what you're targeting to make sure that you have enough money on hand to pay your bills. So that's what we're targeting. And obviously we don't meet that if the fund is going negative. So with the proposed revenue increases that we're projecting, we do still have net negative cash flow for the first 3 years. It's not as significant as under the do nothing plan. You do have some existing cash reserves that are being drawn down, but you'll see by the time we get to 2021, 22, you're back into that positive cash flow scenario. And again, this is in part to spreading out the capital needs a little bit more so it's not putting such strong pressure on your existing reserves or on the rates themselves.
Why is there a big loss, in 2019-20?
That's being driven by the fact that you've got $7.8 million worth of capital projected for that year. So in the other years, you're at 3.2 in 18-19 and then 1.2 in 2021. So you've got a really big capital need for that year.
Those are the projects, those are the capital improvement projects.
Right, right.
Thank you.
So if we move into the proposed rates, this is where I said we've decided to make some changes. So right now, you've got what we call a minimum charge rate structure. So your minimum charge for residential includes up to the first 3,000 cubic feet of water. So if you use 1,000 cubic feet of water, 1,500 cubic feet of water, 2,000 cubic feet of water, you're paying the same as somebody who uses 3,000 cubic feet of water. Yes?
And can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How is that legal?
It's something that we used to see more often. It's not so much anymore. I would defer to the town or city attorney on the legality of it. I can say, in our experience, we try and shy away from that. We find it difficult to justify that somebody using 1,000 cubic feet should be paying the same as somebody paying, using 2,500
It's
cubic
common
feet.
sense, right? Okay, all right, thank you.
So, so that's where things are at currently. We're proposing to do away with that, so that instead of having a minimum charge every month, you have what we call a base charge. So there are certain costs that the city does incur regardless of whether or not you use water. And there's staff time, there's the meter reader's cost, there's cost to go out and maintain the system. So there are some costs that need to be recovered regardless of how much water you use, but it's going to be a much lesser charge than what you're showing today, and I'll get to that in a second. So the other change that we're making is that customers will now be charged for every cubic foot of water they use. So there isn't that 3,000 cubic foot threshold anymore. So you've got more control. So if you're only using 500 cubic feet of water, you're only going to be charged for 500 cubic feet of water now. You're not going to be charged for 3,000 cubic feet of water. So that's one of the changes that we propose. On the non-residential side, currently your base charge is the same for all meter sizes. So if you have a 1-inch meter, you pay the same monthly charge as somebody with a 6-inch meter. A 6-inch meter costs more to install, it costs more to maintain, there's more water capacity associated with a 6-inch meter, they're just plain more costly. So what we're proposing is that the base charge is going to increase based on your meter size. That's an industry standard practice, and AWWA, American Water Works Association, publishes manuals on what those differences should be based on the meter sizes. The other change that we're proposing for the non-residential customers is right now you could have a single meter serving 10 units within the same development complex. Right now, all 10 of those units is getting charged the minimum charge, even though it's only 1 meter serving all 10 of those. So what we're proposing is if it's 1 meter serving those 10 units, there should only be 1 meter charge. There's not 10 meters, there's only the 1. So that's one of the changes we're proposing. So there we've got the rates. So you can see right now the current charge for the current base charge, minimum charge for a residential unit is $43.89, and we're proposing it to go down to $17.24, which is a fairly significant drop, but at the same time, you're going to be charged for every cubic foot of water that they're using now.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
And the 3,000 cubic feet of water somewhat equals about 22,000 gallons per household. If someone with the rate change was to use 3,000 cubic feet, what would be their rate? Do you have an idea?
We're getting there.
Okay, am I getting
a little
ahead
bit
of
later,
you?
yeah.
Okay, all right, no worries.
Yeah, so, and then you currently have a differential, so the first dwelling unit is charged at the $43.89. If you're in a multifamily unit, the second unit is charged at a lower rate, so we're proposing to maintain that same relationship going forward. Again, the commercial, manufacturing, and industrial, your non-residential, you've got the $48.89 regardless of meter size, and we're proposing that to change going forward.
And as far as I know the commercial, the residential, everybody with the residential in Calexico got a brand new meter about 2 years ago. As far as charging the commercial more because they have a 4-inch or 6-inch, does that mean they're going to get a new meter? Or it's just the meter they've always had?
It would be the same meter that,
We've replaced all the meters, even the 6 and the 2 and the 4 inches.
Everything went, okay, all right.
so here we've got the proposed volume rates. So again, on the residential side, it's going to drop a little bit from $2.22 to $1.99. It's reflective of that fact that you don't have that minimum anymore. You're starting to pay for every cubic foot that you use. And then we've got the corresponding rates for the non-residential, the construction truck, and the water for resale. Any more questions on water before we move into sewer? All right. Similar story on the sewer side as we had on the water side. The operational costs on the sewer side are going up just like they are on the water side. Electricity costs are going up. Chemical costs are going up. We've got the cost for the lease of the treatment plant land, repair and maintain the system. The wastewater treatment plant improvements, you've got a fairly significant undertaking there, about $25.5 million. We decided not to do that, just cash funding the full project. That would have caused rates to spike fairly significantly, so we are proposing a debt issuance, which I'll get to on the next slide, to help offset the rate impact of that. We've got some manhole rehabilitation and the lagoon system rehabilitation. So again, wanting to say something? Or?
We go ahead.
Okay. Again, just some very significant capital needs on the sewer side that are causing the need for rates to go up.
And just to be clear, Kevin,
Yes.
this rate study for water and sewer is cost of service.
It is cost of
There's
service.
no
Yes.
profit for the city. There's
Correct.
nothing. Yes.
Right,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, we're not trying to build a big fund balance for the city at all. We're just trying to take in the cost that the city needs to operate and maintain the system effectively, and then have that appropriate fund balance threshold to make sure you can pay your bills.
And in fact, we're going to be drawing down the balances.
Yeah, we saw that on the water side, and I'll get there in a second on the sewer side as well. So here's what we're proposing for, on the sewer side, a 5%, 4.5, 4.5, 2, and 2. And the 2 and 2, that's reflective of the fact that we are relying on that $18 million worth of debt to help fund that treatment plant capital project. If we were to try and cash fund it, that 5% would be a lot higher, the 4.5 would be higher, and certainly those 2s would be a lot higher going forward as well. And we've got the similar projection here of what would happen if we didn't raise any additional revenue, we just had growth in the system. You're going red pretty good, pretty early on there. So with the proposed revenue increases, as the city manager said, even in the first 3 years there, you're drawing down on your cash reserves, but then we start to rebound. So we're not proposing rates that are going to generate a huge fund balance for the city. We're trying to get where we need to be. So you can see by 22, 23 there, the targeted reserves that the city should have is 1.15 million, and with the revenue increases, you're at 1.33 million. So a little bit above what your targeted reserves are, but not extravagant or exorbitant by industry standards. In terms of the sewer rates, we wanted to modify the residential rate structure so that it more closely matched what we're doing on the water side. And by that, we mean on the water side, as I said, if you're a multifamily complex, the first unit is charged at one rate, and then each additional dwelling unit after that is charged at a lesser rate. So that's what we're proposing for the sewer side as well. So you've got the initial monthly charge for the first dwelling unit at $44.46, and then each additional unit is going to be discounted at the $22.23. So that's one of the changes that we made there. We didn't see any issues with the non-residential rates as they were now, so we're proposing that rate structure stay the same on the sewer side. One of the earlier questions that was asked was, how does this compare if you're using what the average customer uses? Currently, you would be at the orange bar there on the far left, the $43.89. If you were to use the same amount of water going forward under the new rate structure as you are today, you would bump up to the $59.03. While that is a fairly significant jump, you're still below what the rest of your neighbors are. You're about 6% below what El Centro is for the same level of water use, and about 19% below the average across the board there. And again, part of this is the customer will now have more control over their water use, so they don't necessarily jump to that $59.03. They've got the opportunity to lower their water bill and minimize that difference between the current and what the proposed would be under the new rate structure.
And Kevin, we have some, senior citizens and some other residents that use much less water, 5 units and so
Right.
forth. Their rates will actually drop
Their
below
rates
the
will drop from
43.
where they are today because they're not being penalized by that 3,000
Correct.
cubic foot minimum.
It's what you use, you'll be charged.
What you use is what you're going to be charged for. So we like to think that this is a more equitable rate structure for the community and gives you more control over it.
How is Heber surviving with that?
Great. My gosh.
No grass.
Heber had a big water treatment plant and improvements that they had to fund, so I think that's why they went high.
So a similar type presentation on the sewer side here. You've got Calexico current in the orange there, the proposed in the green. You're about 22% below Brawley. The proposed rate would be about 22% below what Brawley is for sewer, and about 17% below the average. Obviously, nobody wants to see their bill go up, but at the same time, we wanted to give you some perspective of where you will end up compared to your neighbors. The other thing that I will point out to this is those rates that we're showing for the other communities those are what their current rates are right now. We tried to find out, are you planning on doing any rate increases as well? Are you planning on changing your rate structure? We didn't hear back from them, which may mean they're not, or it may mean they are. We don't know, but I just wanted to throw that in as a caveat as well. So the next steps that we have is we're looking for some direction that this makes sense to everyone. We're ready to send out the Proposition 218 mailings to inform the public of what is being proposed, conducting the public hearing, which happens 45 days after the mailing goes out to give people ample time to review and ask questions and reach out to the city. And then new rates would become effective July 1. And with that, if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them for you.
Mayor? Yeah, I have actually a few loaded questions, I think.
Okay.
So I think it's really important that people understand exactly what Prop 218 entails. And, you know, and like the city manager said, basically what it is saying that a city cannot charge for more than what it costs to service, to get the water from point A to point B, to your front door, I guess, or to your faucet, for that matter. But, and this is something that I've brought up for the last couple of years, that I always thought this was severely unfair to a large group of our constituents, of our citizens, specifically our senior citizens, who live maybe just husband and wife alone in a home, and they're paying for 3,000 cubic feet when they don't use nearly as much. So, but with that said, you know, this gives us what you're proposing, and it is a proposal.
It is, yes.
Open to possible, I guess, to be able to be modified if that be the case. That it just brings a sense of fairness to everybody. And at the same time, while helping the people that use less water, at the same time, this kind of pushes the people that use more water to conserve more water, because their rates most likely will be paid at a higher rate. But here's where I struggle with what we're doing right now. And I understand what the concept is the city of Calexico pretty much gives you or maybe you vice versa, but somehow the city of Calexico says, Mr. Company Wildan, look, we need a new clarifier, we need a new, but this is our wish list because we need to be up to this level, right? And that's understandable. But what happens, for example, with Calexico for the last, what was the last rate study? How many years ago?
2006.
92?
No.
2006 when it was.
2006. So from 2006 to now, right, 12 years, or 11, whatever, that study was done back then. And all those monies that were coming in were not used to do what they were supposed to do. See, these clarifiers now that we're trying to build and all these things we're trying to build now were supposed to be built back then, because I remember them bringing up that all these things needed to be up to, okay, so I'm trying to get to the people to understand is that this is all fine and dandy, but what happens if none of this gets done? then the people are just paying a higher rate, which is what happened for the last 12 years. They're paying a higher rate for water, and none of the things that were supposed to get done got done. Somehow they use that money. Obviously, it's illegal to use enterprise monies for something else. And understand that while I don't want to say that anybody stole money or anything funny happened, but at the same time, the things that should have gotten done didn't get done. And the monies were spent in enterprise fund, but maybe more on overtime or equipment or things that should have been. And that's why I think it's important that I personally want to see the last study that was done to make sure that we don't have things on this list that were on that list back then, and that's why they never got done. Because I know that in this water fund, there was millions and millions of dollars.
There still
approximately 14 million last time I remember.
There still is, and that's part of the reason why we don't have to raise the rates, because we're using those funds to do this capital improvement program.
And
Yeah.
correct. You know, why, I guess my question is, and I'm not saying, again, you got to understand that we're here one day, we're gone 2 years from now or a year from now. Then new people come in, and I think that's what happened. But I guess my question is, who's responsible? And I feel that the people should know the truth. Who's responsible for those monies that the city paid for all this time and didn't get what they were supposed to get? I guess Prop 218. How can we find out? You know, do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand
right?
where you're coming from.
Okay. So if last time the rates were raised for a new clarifier, for whatever it is that they needed, they charged it for 12 years and nothing got done, who do we hold accountable for not getting that done? Do you understand?
I do.
And how do we make sure that this gets
What was
done?
done with the money, too? Just sitting there.
Right, because your job is just to tell us where we should be. But ideally, Prop 218 holds accountable, the city that the stuff needs to be done. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so I mean, people need to understand that these rates that are going up in some form or another are because it's a city, I'm not going to call it a wish list, but it's a city wish list that we need, I guess, right?
It's a need.
So,
yeah.
so I think that's important.
Right.
So.
Wow.
To further Mr. Ayala's comments, I think it's important that we also speak in layman's terms at this public hearing. Basically, if you're a couple, an elderly couple, a young couple, a recently married couple, and you pay 101.50 or whatever we pay currently, what your new rate's going to be. Very simple, apples to apples comparison. I think that's really what we should be doing. I understand all the information. It took me a while to digest it. But I think we should make it a lot simpler for our community to understand. Bottom line, if you're a family of 6, you pay this, X, and you're going to pay Y. Why? Because you're consuming Z. If you're a single grandmother that lives alone, you're paying X, now you're going to pay Y, should be much lower.
Right.
Because you're consuming Z. I mean, again, just make it in layman's terms, make it very simple for our community.
Right, and that's something that we have discussed with the city manager. So when we produce our report, there will be a section in it of customer comparison. So a low volume user, what would their bill be currently versus proposed? An average user, a high user, and we'll make sure we get that incorporated in the public presentation as
And
well.
there's two key components once you're explaining this, in my opinion. One from the water standpoint, one from the sewer standpoint is our current cash reserves, which are
Right.
significant.
Right.
Multi-million-dollar on both ends, which goes to what Mr. Ayala's comments were, as to where's the money. It's there, it's just
It's there.
unfortunately, I mean, you can blame whoever you want, but at the end of the day, the money has not been spent. There's a lot of deferred maintenance when it comes to our sewer system and our water system.
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, I lost my train of thought. I had a second comment, so I'll be quiet for now.
Let me just, before I forget, and that's that comment, again, a clarifier right now can cost you $5 million, and 10 years from now, it'll cost you 10, because everything's getting more
Everything's gonna
expensive.
go
So,
up.
Inflation.
but again, yeah, it's just, you're right, it's not who was there, who wasn't there, what happened, but at the same time, how do we make sure that this happens? You know what I mean?
I do.
And also, can we get you didn't put a list up here of exactly what, what toys we're getting new.
Yeah, I tried to pick out the big ticket items, but yeah, we can certainly get you a list of all the projects that
Well,
are.
there's two major,
Let's
that
see what-
was the thing I
let's see
forgot.
what-
There was two major items that we're investing multi-million dollars on.
Mhm.
And again, that should be discussed
It's
as
in
well.
our
One is the
capital improvement
clarifier, and
program.
the other one is also disclosed in here that I saw.
Mhm. It actually includes everything in our capital improvement program for the water and sewer enterprise.
And just, again, this is good for usually every 5 years, correct? Which is the 5-year plan that you're doing.
Yeah.
So the fact that we didn't do it in the every 5 years, I'll give you an example. If we went another 12 years with this here, right?
Right.
That means that after 5 years, let's say in a perfect world, the rates go to this, exactly what you're proposing, and 5 years from now, we get all the toys, all the clarifiers, everything that we need, and we're there. That means that January 1st, the 6th year, then in reality, if you don't need those new things, then you could be overcharging the people. Correct? In theory.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
We
what I
need to
wanted
do a rate study every 5 years. It really should be done every 5 years.
Mayor
You'll-
Pro
you'll
Tem.
reevaluate what your capital needs are, your new toys.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that
every-
we
every
didn't
5 years, yeah.
do it 12 years, in 12 years.
Right.
Mayor Pro Tem. Okay. A lot of discussion here, so I just want to understand. And for me, what's important is that the working man, the senior citizens, the people that struggle every day, get a fair break on this. And what I understand, and I hope to be true, is that this new structure will do that because it's based on volume usage. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why. I don't have a real reason, but I still have a doubt that maybe poor people are going to get stuck with this. I don't know. I don't know why.
It's just based on usage, though.
Yeah, I know
What
it's
you
based on
use.
usage, but if anything, then we need education. So maybe conservation tips
Absolutely.
put in the water bill or a forum of some type to inform people on how they can conserve water, because
Is there a way to set?
habits are hard to change, and a lot of people are going to be aghast when they first see their water bill if they don't change their habits.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The public forum, is there a way to put it in the water bill? So that,
I'm sorry,
So-
what?
is there a way to put the public forum or in the
Proposal.
water bill?
Conservation
No,
tips.
in other words, for them to come to the meeting?
The
public hearing?
218 process is very clear. We have to give them all notice of the
Okay.
public hearing. Yeah.
45 days prior to the,
45-day process. So the proposed date for the hearing is June 20th.
any other questions?
No, just, I would like the copy of the last study, just to go.
Sure,
over.
I have that. The
that's
city
just-
clerk, our projector's battery's going down. We still have another presentation.
So do we vote on this? It's just discussion?
We do need an approval to adopt.
Staff recommendation. Let's get a motion to approve staff recommendation, which will authorize providing for the Prop 218 45-day notice.
So this is not to approve it the way it is? yet?
No, this would authorize for the city to then go ahead and prepare the notice, mail it out to the residents in the city. We would have a public hearing after 45 days, at which folks can either object, either by being here and present or submitting an objection. And then based upon that, then the city would actually take, if there's not a majority protest, the city could then go ahead and adopt the rate increases.
Okay, we're going to authorize staff to mail written notice to customers and property owners by the proposed update of water and wastewater rates in compliance with all requirements of Prop 218 and California state law, and schedule a public hearing to consider adoption of the updated water and wastewater rates at a date no less than 45 days after the mailing of the notice. Is there a motion for that?
I'll make a motion,
There a
Mayor Pro
second?
Tem.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
This
Thank
has
you
been
very
in the
much.
works for months now.
Thank you.
So we're
It arrived. It's here. You can rest now. Item 14,
Good job. Thank you.
setting a public hearing for proposed solid waste and recycling rate adjustment and authorization to proceed with Prop 218 notice and also 45 days. Mr. Dale,
You want to speak to this?
not that one.
Correct. This item comes yearly under the city's current franchise agreement with Allied Waste. It provides for a CPI increase that goes into effect yearly beginning January 1st. So you have one, a contractual obligation under your franchise agreement to pass a CPI. At the same time, too, we also need to provide 45-day notice. So we're here before you seeking City Council approval to go ahead and provide 45-day notice for a public hearing on this CPI rate increase, which for the previous calendar year is 2.7%. At the same time, too, Allied Waste did also request an increase due to the SB 1 tax increase, and as such, we're requesting that. However, when we reviewed their request and looked at the contractual language, that requested rate increase is discretionary because it's not to the level that we would be required to pass it on to the customers. As such, at this point in time, we're just recommending City Council to go ahead and authorize for the city to go ahead and proceed with the Prop 218 notice. And also one caveat, we're also including an escalator here, so to the extent there's a CPI increase for the next 5 years, we would also be able to, go ahead and increase rates per CPI without having to do a Prop 218 notice. So we built that into the
So if the consumer price index goes down, they also lower it?
if it's an increase, no, not the way the language is in the contract.
Oh, well,
Okay, so based on this, we're
of course
recommending.
not.
We're recommending that the city council authorize the city manager to set a public date hearing for the city council on June 20th, 2018, to hear public comments on the annual solid waste and recycling rate, consumer price index, CPI rate adjustment for the next 5 years, which will be set not less than the 45 days after the notice of public hearing is mailed.
Correct.
All right?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion to approve item number 14.
Is there a second, please? Second?
Oh, you can vote, yes.
Is there a second? Discussion? We just need a second.
I made a motion. We need a second on the floor.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Now, these guys have been waiting for a while. We're going to have a report, audited financial statements, federal single audit report, transportation development, finance statements, and letter to the auditor, letter of auditor communications, item number 15.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, member of the City Council again. My name is Ken Poon. I'm the engagement partner for the audit of the City of Calexico. So as usual, this time of the year, I'm coming here to present the last year audit for the fiscal year end, June 30, 2017. So what we are going through today is going through a summary of what we do by going through the scope of work that we perform for the City of Calexico. But under the current auditing standard, we are required to communicate with you regarding the audit responsibility as you being management yourself, and then also ourselves as the auditor. Also, instead of walking you through almost like over 100 pages of report, we also give you a highlight of what included in these financial statements. We'll give you a brief overview of the financial position. We'll also look at some financial key indicator and some key pension information. Those are very, very important information that you may need to know. And last but not least is go through our audit results. So the scope of work. There are three types of work that we do for the city. One is the financial statement audit, basically covering what we audit is covering the period from July 1st of 2016 to June 30, 2017. Since the city has also spent more than $750,000 of federal expenditure, you are also required to go through the single audit purposes. So, which means that we are looking at the major program, which is under the federal programs, and audit those expenditure, making sure that those are in compliance with the laws and regulations. The TDA compliance, making sure that those TDA funding are really used for the transportation and roads. And last but not least, under Prop 13, we are also required to perform and agree upon procedures to recalculate the appropriation limit and making sure that the city is adopting the right appropriation limit for the year. So the audit responsibility under the current standard, as mentioned, you are fully responsible for these financial statements. By presenting these financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principle, you also need to adopt sound accounting policy, establish and maintain proper internal control over financial reporting and compliance to make sure that there is no non-compliance or material mistake in your financial statement. Provide evidence supporting to the amount and the disclosure in these financial statements. And last but not least is you do have programs to detect and prevent fraud. As auditor ourselves, we actually perform the audit in conformity with generally accepted auditing standard, and then also at the same time we perform these audit under the government auditing standard, which means that you do receive a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance to note that if there's any significant deficiency or material weaknesses that we identify in internal control, we will actually put that in our report and will be it is a public record. Communicate with those charged with governance. Basically, we determine the city council as those charged with governance here. So we provide. That's why I'm here tonight to provide a two-way communications. Provide you a forum to ask me any questions regarding the audit. We also assess the audit risk on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. We also not only looking at the numbers, but also we need to take a whole entire financial report and look at the fair presentation of these financial statements. And last but not least is to render our audit opinions. So overview of the audit. So the report actually include only one section, which is the financial section. So the first one is our independent auditor's report, which actually is our conclusion of this audit, which also spelled out the opinion on this on your financial statement. So the financial statement actually include the basic financial statement. It includes three things: the government-wide financial statement, which is, I call it a consolidated financial statement as a city as a whole. So this government financial statement basically break it down by governmental activities and enterprise activities. This is your whole entire city's financial position for the fiscal year. The fund financial statement is which is the statement that you use on a day-to-day basis, and then also this is the statement that the city is actually adopting the budget on. So that's why the fund financial statement is really, really useful, because you can actually compare how you budgeted, and then also what is the actual amount being spent during the current year. The notes to the financial statement is actually give you a much more detail of the numbers of what, including the summary of significant accounting policy, how you the accounting works out for the city of Calexico. Also give you a lot more detail like cash and investment, the pension information, the OPEB information. Those are also included in the notes to basic financial statement. The required supplementary information is required under GASB Statement Number 34, which adopted almost 15, 16 years ago. Those actually is, even though this sections is called unaudited, but actually do provide you a lot of information in there. The first one is very important, is the budget information. That's actually, especially for the general fund, you do see how you adopt the budget, and then also some adjustment during the year, and then compare to the actual. So with this one document, you can see how you perform in comparison to how you adopt the budget. Also, this requires supplementary information, also provides you the key information about the pension. So the first one is the schedule of change in proportionate share of the net pension liability and the related ratio, and then also the schedule of contribution. And last but not least, since the OPEB standard has not been, the new OPEB standard has not been implemented, so the old standard under GASB statement number 45, you will also see the schedule of the funding progress. How much is that actually being funded for your OPEB plan? Last but not least is the supplementary information. Actually, anything other than the fund information, other than those actually classified as major present in the fund financial statement, the details are all in the supplementary information. So you will also find each of the fund in the that is classified as non-major are all in the supplementary information. So this is the number as of June 30, 2017. The statement of net position on the government-wide financial statement. This is a point-in-time financial statement as of June 30. So as of June 30, 2017, total asset $181 million. Liabilities of about like $85 million, resulting the total net position of $99.6 million. As you can see, you also see the deferred outflow resources and also deferred inflow resources. Those two items, like one is $5.3 million, the other one is close to $2 million. Those are the elements that are being used, being done by your actuary relating to your pension standard. Those number has not been used to in the calculation of pension expense, and those will be used in the future years. Those amount will be used in the future years. So the 5.3, 1.9 million dollars, and then also coming down to the net position. The net investment in capital asset of $66.5 million, restricted of about like $63 million, resulting in the unrestricted position of $9.5 million. Total, when you see under the governmental activities, you see the $33.3 million. Majority of the deficit is because of the implementation of the GASB 68, the pension standard, and then also the net OPEB obligation being recorded as a liability on the face of financial statement. So total of about like $32 million in total.
I do recall last year you mentioned something as far as the GASB, it's a governmental accounting standards board, right?
Right.
That they were this year there was gonna be a lot more that they were asking for from the city. Is that correct? As far as other standards, or I remember last year you were stating something like that. I guess that there was some things we didn't have that this year we needed to have. Is that correct?
Not this year, it's next year.
Oh, next year. Okay.
Next year.
Okay.
So last year, 2 years ago, you already have the new pension standard, so that's why you add about like $19 million in your liability for this fiscal year, but also the OPEB standard, that will be added next year.
Okay.
In
So it's next
2018,
year.
so it's not under the current year. So when you actually add the net OPEB obligation for the current year, plus the net pension liabilities, that's added up to close to $32 million.
Okay.
In these financial statements. Out of that 64, 32 is actually relating to those two items. Okay. So let's take a look at the income statement. So this is the statement of activities. Total expenses between the governmental activities and the business type activities totaling of about like $36.7 million. Program revenues are those actually you can charge the user for a fee, especially the one in your enterprise fund. So it's about like $12.6 million coming from your enterprise fund. But including total program revenues are $25 million. The net cost of service is about like $11 million. So those are actually substituted by your tax revenue of about like and other miscellaneous investment earnings. Those are totaling up for about like $14.6 million. So in current year, we also the city also write off a old construction in progress of about like $1.4 million. So resulting at the end of the day, the city still have a surplus of about like $1.9 million. Okay, increase totally. So the general fund is the main operating fund of the city. So let's take a look at the general fund. Total asset, it's about $1.6 million. But as you can see, the cash is zero balance, but also at the same time, the general fund is actually owing other funds of about like $1.2 million. So under the current liability, $1.9 million, 1.1 is actually is a cash overdrawn, and it's due to other funds. So the total liability is $4.7 million. Total fund balance at the end of the day, it's a negative $3 million. However, we understand that the city has significantly improved the balance sheet, the net position, and also trying to take step to pay back the wastewater fund. Okay. So the general fund, the income statement, let's take a look at the income statement. Total revenue is about like $17 million. Total expenditure is about like $15.8 million, resulting the revenue over expenditure of about like $1.4 million. Net out all the transfer, $1 million to other funds, resulting a net increase in fund balance of $4.3 million, $435,000. Also, this year we made a prior period adjustment to increase the fund balance. Also, is because there are some cost allocation plan coming from the prior year, and we determined that should be going back to the general fund balance. So that's why, including the couple $100,000, about like $500,000 of adjustment, plus this year, there's about like $1 million increase of fund balance compared to prior years. Okay. So the financial indicator and key pension information, one of the things that I certainly take a closer look at is the net cost of service compared to tax revenue. Last year, the result was about like 128%, which means that every tax dollars that you generate, it costs the city about like $1.75. But this year, you have a 96.5%. To me, this is what I call it a break-even situation, which is your financial statement, financial condition supposed to be. So the net cost of service is about like $13.3 million, tax revenue $13.8 million. So it's basically kind of bring it back down to normal for the fiscal year end June 30, 2017. Also, let's take a look at the rainy days fund reserve. Usually compare the unassigned fund balance to the total annual expenditure. Last year, you have a $4 million deficit. Annual expenditure was about like $19.2 million, so the ratio is about like close to 21% negative. You are supposed to be the other way around. So you should be at like 20% positive.
Empty, is that why?
Yes, it's that. So under the current year, one thing that we need to kudos to city management under their leadership, this annual expenditure has significantly dropped from $19.2 million to $15.7 million. And then also take a look at the unassigned fund balance, $3 million. So at the end of the day, as you can tell, it's still in the negative position. But the thing was, the annual expenditure, the expenditure is in control, and then also the unassigned net fund balance deficit is also decreasing. So actually, it's improving your financial condition. However, the pension is another big estimate on the financial statement. So CalPERS is using the 7.5% discount rate as to determine your net pension liability. So as of June 30, 2016, which is the measurement date which we report under the current year, so total liabilities report on the financial statement is about like $22 million, but it's under the 7.5% discount rate, which means that CalPERS is expecting the investment rate of return is at 7.5%. However, as you may aware, CalPERS did not meet the 7.5% for so many years. So in December of 2016, CalPERS already determined that there will be, that there's a drop of the discount rate starting this year. So that's mean, since I'm not an actuary, so I would not be able to tell you exactly what will be the impact, but one of the footnote that we want to bring it on, and I put it on this slide, is the sensitivity data. So basically, it's a plus 1% and minus 1%. So let's take a look at the minus 1%.
Historically, they have they've overprojected.
Yes, they
both up,
overprojected. Yeah. So if it is actually evaluate the net pension liability at 6.5%, which actually the city will have a liability for it totaling about like $35 million, which is another close to $13 million more compared to what we reported in your report. So the other way around, if CalPERS did great, 8.5%, then it would drop it to $12 million.
But historically, they haven't hit their numbers.
No.
So it's wishful thinking. They're giving us a best-case scenario, but it's better to prepare for the worst.
Yeah. So, and then also, one of the things that the city needs to plan out because of the dropping of the discount rate starting this year, the contribution rate is going up. So, like within the next 5 years, based on my experience and looking at all the my other clients, they're expecting to be double in 5 years on the contribution rate. So
I'm
that's
sure
why-
Mrs. Mayor is gonna tell us that right in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so those needs to be factored in. Like I understand these financial statements are historical record, but also at the same time, you need to keep that in mind using this information and prepare for your future budget. Yeah. So, and also, GASB statement number 45, as I said earlier, has the OPEB standard has not been fully has not been implemented until next year. So currently, the city only record the funding liability, which is about like $12 million on the face of financial statement. However, based on your last valuation date, which is July 1st of 2016, your OPEB liability was about like $32 million. However, the city is using what I call the pay-as-you-go method. You did not actually set aside money to fund this OPEB plan. So starting next year, as if it was the same dollar amount that I'm expecting, there will be another $18 million that needs to add on to your financial statement and create a bigger deficit on your government-wide financial statement. The audit results. We are issuing an unmodified opinion for all opinion units. Basically, I'm not saying that it's clean opinion because you do have some issues that we concern, but this is the best opinion that we can give out. The financial statements are fairly presented in all material respect. Accounting policy have been consistently applied. The estimates are reasonable, and the disclosure are properly reflected in these financial statements. That is the terms that I call unmodified opinions mean.
Unqualified is that you're good.
Is the best.
Is the best.
Yeah.
And we've had that before.
It's every single year you have
This is the first year
unmodified.
we've been degraded then.
No, basically what I'm going to say is there are some concern that we have. We do have findings, and that is one of the things that we emphasize in our audit report. One is a going concern issue. Because of the financial condition of the city, the general fund has about like a $3 million deficit in your general fund balance, and then also as of June 30, 2017, your cash is overdrawn in your general fund. So that's raised a substantial doubt about your future operations. So that's why we got to be careful, because we understand the cost is actually going up, the pension cost, the contribution rate, the inflation, everything is going up. So that's why it's actually we have some doubt about the future operations. And then also the second thing that I talk about in our audit report is the change in CalPERS discount rate. Starting from this year, it will drop from 7.5% progressively to 7%. That will have a major, major impact, not only booking the liability, but also with the current situation with CalPERS, they're expecting a more and more of contribution coming from the employer side. So basically, the city will end up paying those contribution rate to make sure that it's funding according to the CalPERS plan. Okay. Other results, we do not have any disagreement with management. However, we do identify significant deficiency and material weaknesses in internal control over financial reporting and compliance. We do not have any accounting issues, and we did not identify any material fraudulent activity during our audit. So those are basically good results. The first findings that we have is actually relating to the delay in financial reporting. I understand that the city been doing their best and trying to accelerate the closing procedures, having us coming in early enough to perform the audit, but without enough accounting personnel, qualified accounting personnel, it's pretty tough. But this year, we are a month earlier than compared to last year.
Does that mean we paid you guys less?
Not really, but the thing was, we still have a lot of work to perform.
Contract is a contract.
Yes, and we highly recommend the city will do a little bit more your due diligence, aggressively finding your next finance director, and then hopefully by next year we will be able to complete that by March 31st. Second item, like the second item in my finding, is to retain qualified accounting personnel. As you, I was here the last couple of years, and it seems like the city had a hard time retaining good accounting personnel, your finance director, some accountants to help like doing your day-to-day operations. This is very important. Since 2015, you don't have that person, and I know Susan Mayer is down here helping out all the time, and it is important that you set the tone at the top, retain good candidate, so that trying to minimize the risk of having a material misstatement in your financial statement, and then also making sure that you are compliant with all the grants and compliance requirements. Okay. The one thing about single audit, unfortunately, we are actually issuing a qualified opinion on the home program. The 14.239 is one of the HUD program. Total expenditure is about $463,000 for the year. The two things that we actually qualify on is one, the city do not have internal control in place, and then unable to produce an accurate internal home notes receivable ledger and the program income ledger during the audit. So basically, those are the two compliance requirements that we look at, especially the program income. So the next item is actually keep going on is the talking about the reporting. Besides the compliance requirements of keeping the ledger clean, keeping track of your program income, but also the city did not submit the following report: the quality state performance report, the state home project monthly status report, and the quality state program income report. I know the reporting doesn't have any question cost, but the thing was, this is one of the major requirements that you need to submit it to HUD, and making sure that to avoid having them to block your future funding.
What do these do, the quarterly state performance, state home? Is there a targeted date that they're due?
It's on every quarter, March 31st, June 30, every quarter you need to, yeah. So that concludes my presentation tonight, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
A lot easier this time, this go around, a little easier?
A little easier. The information are actually cleaner. I know your Susan Mayer and some of your support team actually do work very, very hard to push the accounting record closer to December 31st, so that we can come in on January 1st to start the audit.
I'll wait for my comments after Ms. Sayer's done.
It was just a report, Mr. Dale. We don't need to accept.
I believe you do
Just
need to
file.
accept the audit. You need to vote on an acceptance.
All right.
You could just make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would also like to publicly thank you, Mr. Ken Pun, and the Pun Group for sticking with the city through the rough times, and we look forward to working with you in the future, too. Thank you.
Bum, bum, bum.
Item 16.
Bum, bum, bum.
2017-18 third quarter
This is a
budget
serial
report and
matter, so
adoption
it's a
of
serious
resolution of City
Please don't
Calexico
be joking
approving
like that.
a mid-year budget amendment. Ms. Meyer.
Who's talking?
Welcome.
Thank you. Good
Best
evening.
for last?
Jamaican cat.
I'm sorry.
Best for last?
Absolutely.
Jamaican cat.
Good evening, Council. My name is Susan Mayer. I'm a financial consultant for the city, and I'm here to give you a checkup on the general fund. This is the third quarter budget report. And I just want to connect this report with the last one. The audit results and this third quarter budget report are both presented to you to show both the staff and the city management's commitment to give you the financial tools to provide the fiduciary oversight of the city. The city has gone through periods of time where there was not current financial reporting, and there was some significant overspending. And these two reports just show the current management team's commitment to giving you the tools to monitor the city's financial condition. As you just heard from our auditor, we do have problems. Our general fund is overspent, and it has been, but it's better. It's better. The fund balance at June 2017, as was reported in the audit, is $1 million better. We were overspent by 4 through past years of overspending, and during the year of which the audit results portrayed to you, the city made the first of its installment payments back to the wastewater fund and significantly dropped its expenditures through very painful cuts by the employees and through painful service reductions to the public. But it's better. The city is on a path to fiscal recovery, and the third quarter budget report that I'm going to hear is going to move that discussion forward 1 year. What you just heard from Mr. Poon were results from the 2017 fiscal year. So now we are 3 quarters into the 17-18 fiscal year. So flash forward 1 year, and here we are with our report. I'm sorry, City Clerk, may I have the clicker? Again, just to show the history here, we were in front of you with the first quarter report in October and gave you a fairly extensive report in January and talked a lot about some of the upcoming obligations. The report for you will be very brief tonight. This is just a checkup on just the general fund. We're not addressing the other funds. We have not seen issues to report on in the other issues. We're just going to focus on the general fund tonight. The action that we will ask you to consider is to formally amend the 2017-18 budget with some progress that we'll discuss here. But again, this is just a checkup on where we are. What are the highlights? I have three takeaways from our report tonight. The first is that we are closing our general fund budget gap. As the budget was adopted last June, the city was still adjusting to its new realities, the new level of revenues that it has, and the cost of services. The budget was adopted with a $3.2 million placeholder. The revenues did not cover the projected expenditures, and that's how we started the year. In January, the city manager proposed reductions of $2.5 million. We were left with a $700,000 gap because the city had anticipated a $700,000 contribution from the Heffernan District to support the fire transport services, and that did not come through. So we were left with a remaining gap of $700,000. And so the good news tonight is that we have identified the solutions and are presenting to you a path to end the fiscal year with revenues matching expenditures. I say that with caution. The general fund budget gap is very, very close. And the best way I can describe this to you is that you've had 3 different financial decision makers in the last year. When the budget was adopted last year, your city finance director went through and cut as much as possible from every department to the grief of his peers, the department heads, who said that the budget was cut too much. So then in January, you had Mr. Villa here, who went through again and said, I can cut this budget, and cut $2.5 million. And now Mr. Dale is here, and he has again gone through and challenged the departments to do with even less. And now we're cutting even more from the operating budgets. So 3 different people have come in and opined on your budgets and worked with your departments to cut more than perhaps is really realistic on a long-term basis. Your budgets are very, very tight. Your departments have trouble paying their bills. I was an outsider coming in. I will tell you that there is better expenditure control now than I have seen in the time that I have been here. With your new financial system in place, with the budget loaded into the system, departments are not able to process purchase orders and pay their bills unless there is budget on the right line. And so I think what you will see between now and the end of the year is a lot of shuffling back and forth to find a way to make it happen. But there is an incredible amount of expenditure control going on right now, and is necessary because the reality is you have no reserves. So although this report is good news in that we have a path forward to balance and last with cash to the end of the year, this is only happening because of very tight hiring controls and spending controls. So this is good news, but very cautious good news. There are a lot of attachments to this report that give you a lot of summary information on the status of particular revenue streams and expenditure items. There are expenditure reports by department, for example. You can go back and see exactly how much has been spent year to date. The reports were run on March 23rd. Most of the city has used up right about 3/4 of their budget. But bills tend to come in a month late, right? You pay for your June services in July. So the fact that you've used up 3/4 of your expenditure budget is not necessarily good news because you've got to really pay 4 months of expenses in 3. So I'm just saying this as a way that we hope that we can get through the year. We've gone through and cut everything possible, but there is a risk that the city can make this number. We have a path forward if the departments can continue to live within their goals. Specifically, the budget amendment in front of you relies on 2 things. We have good news on the sales tax side, and I want to hover on that for just a minute because this is temporary. The city uses HDL, which is a sales tax consultant, to look at each of your business segments that are generating sales tax revenue for you, and they have seen an uptick in the results. So this is good news for your the strength of your underlying economy. Your budget relies heavily on sales tax. And the budget is being amended by $290,000 because of this uptick. And I want to emphasize again, this includes both the general fund and the Measure H revenues. This is temporary because since these results have been announced, there have been some store closures announced for your community as well. So the projection, just to foreshadow ahead to the 18-19 fiscal year, the revenues are expected to drop again for sales tax. But we'll take the good news now, and this will help you bridge the gap through the end of the fiscal year.
Can I just ask you, you said the revenues are expected to go up next year?
No, in the current year, for 17-18,
Okay.
the sales tax revenue is being increased because you had some good results. We recently received from the state the results from the December quarter, and the results were ahead of plan, so we're increasing your 17-18 budget. However, because of the store closings, we are reducing the expectation in 18-19.
And usually that quarter, because of exactly ends up being like the Black Friday and all that stuff around, so obviously it goes up. It's not
Many
necessarily
retailers.
a trend.
Many retailers do well in that quarter.
Thank
yes. As did Calexico. So how
Good
else are
news.
we closing the gap? We have additional staff vacancies. The original, since the last budget report, we're increasing our estimate by 263,000. This is 1.3 million. And so we are closing our budget by not providing staffing and providing the service levels that had been anticipated. So this does help us close the gap and get through the end of the year, but it's not necessarily good news because that means we are being short of our anticipated service delivery. There are other operating adjustments, and I have a long list here of the departments that have been cut, not necessarily voluntarily, but with your city manager's direction, we have found ways to cut additional operating budget lines. The last bit is just a bit of good news. With the actual audit being released, we had 17,000 of extra money, which is some late journal entries that increased the general fund budget. And this together collectively balance your general fund through June 30. So that's good news. I want to show this slide, which I have showed many times to you, but I want to just emphasize the word leadership and expenditure control, both in terms of the city council and the city management, the employees, and the community. We had a situation where expenditures were exceeding revenues by over $4 million a year for 2 years in a row. And I just want to, again, commend the community as a whole, including all the stakeholders, for the progress in closing this gap. And this will now represent the second year that the city has lived within its means and balanced its budget. And again, I just need to applaud the leadership for all the parties that have been involved in making this happen. It has not been without pain, but this is how you are restoring your fiscal condition and moving the city forward.
When it started with the past city manager, Armando Villa.
Looking ahead. So enjoy that good news, because in a month, we will be back here looking at the first foreshadow of 1819. And we have quite a hill to climb, because the way we have balanced the budget in the last 2 years is by Band-Aids, by cuts, by temporary solutions, by deferrals, by tricks and mirros. And now,
let us have our moment. Let us have our moment.
yeah, well, you got 30 seconds of that, okay. So,
Give us the month. Give us the month.
so a month from now, we will be back with general fund projections for 1819. So what's happening next year? We will be, next year will be the third of 5 years in repaying the wastewater loan. So steady progress, but you still have a large payment to make each year. JPIA is the insurance pool that the city left 2 years ago, and they have very graciously negotiated a payment plan with you. The reason the budget is balancing this year is you deferred significant costs, actually $800,000 of costs, because they were willing to let you take a payment plan that gave you basically a rate holiday in 17-18, but starting next year, you've got to start paying $600,000 again. So take your base budget, and you got to increase $600,000 to repay JPIA. CalPERS, as you heard from Mr. Poon, and as you've heard from me many times, is changing its investment assumption. So the normal cost of employee services for the current year goes up as a rate of pay, and you also have an increasing debt payment on the past actuarial losses that you have had as well. And so you will see your payments go up in your base budget for CalPERS. The budget this year was balanced based on 1.3 million in vacancies. Some of those positions are being refilled strategically, and so as you fill those positions, you would not necessarily see those savings again next year. And then finally, the most significant is that the employees came to the table and made significant concessions 2 years ago for a 2-year period, and those concessions expire in June. And so the contributions to some of the benefit plans and some of the furloughs will be expiring, and you will have decisions to make as you, again, work with those employee groups going forward. So the bottom line is that we need both short-term and long-term solutions. The city is self-insured without reserves. We have no cash position in our internal service funds, the workers' comp, the liability programs. You get actual projections on what you should be funding. They are not funded. We strip that cash to balance the budget. The general fund has no reserve. In an incredibly fragile financial condition. So what do we need to do? Increase revenues, look at adjusting service levels or reducing the cost of the service levels. And what wonderful news when I was listening through the agenda today about how the city is addressing its revenues. What I heard was an ambulance study. You're addressing the water rates, you're addressing the sewer rates. Your management team is doing what it needs to be doing to address the revenue-producing capacities of all your city services. The citizens need to pay for the cost of services, and it seems like many things are happening to bring those revenue discussions forward and to update those to the current cost of services. So on the revenue side, things are happening. So now we need to look at what else are we going to do, because the JPI payments are real, the CalPERS payments are real. The employee concessions are going away, and you continue to have 3 more years on your wastewater loan. And so for all those reasons, it will be a difficult discussion that we will start again in 30 days when we start to roll out the 18-19 budget. Here's a tentative calendar for you, and I do want to mention that some of these dates are still tentative. During April and May, we are starting to have the discussions on the budget assumptions to be used. On May 30th, not May 31st, I do want to emphasize that, the city manager will be discussing with you whether or not you want to take the time for a special meeting to address just general fund issues. That's not a scheduled date, and actually the date on there is a Thursday, and it was intended to be a Wednesday. So we will look to you to decide if you will be scheduling a special session just to focus on the general fund challenges ahead. In June, we would come to you with 2 meetings. On June 6th, with the all funds proposed budget, not just the general fund, but a look at the whole city, and then give you 2 weeks to consider that before coming back on June 20th to ask you to adopt the budget for the coming year. So that's what the next 2 months look like in terms of the financial planning calendar. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you have and to celebrate the good news, at least for the moment, that our budget is balanced for the current fiscal year.
Any questions from Ms. Mayor? Mr. Escobar?
I wrote down a bunch of notes and I threw 90% of them away because I know it was going to be a long meeting and I could read the writing on the wall because, I mean, it's basically the same message over and over again. We're overspending. And unfortunately, this showcases what the problem is with our city and why we're in the hellhole we're currently in.
I'll put it back up here.
It's a black and white, and it's not a blame game. It's just a very coming from a banking and numbers background. It's just a very frustrating sight to see as how we have imprudently, be it the city council, city managers, or in general, imprudently spent so much money that we didn't have, and how we allowed that to happen is beyond me. But it happened. You can't go back. I'd love to have an extra $12 million to solve our problems, but I don't. It's just a very frustrating feeling, and we're operating on fumes. We're operating on fumes, and we have to be realistic about that, and we can't sugarcoat it. You mentioned staff, and I want to commend staff. They've taken a hit in the gut over and over and over and over. And whether we have mature staff or not, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they took one for the team, and they continue to take one for the team. So I commend them for the sacrifice, working a skeleton crew and trying to provide mediocre services to our city, to my city, getting the criticisms that they get with pay cuts, with furloughs. I mean, it's from top on down, from Mr. Dale, Mr. Figueroa, to department heads, to the common employees. They all deserve kudos for what they've done the past few years and taking one for the team. If it wouldn't be for them, I'm not sure where we'd be. Having said that, you mentioned 3 things: increasing revenue, reducing services, and Basically, basically, it comes out to
Cost.
outsourcing. Reducing cost of services, which is, I mean, the common denominator is outsourcing. I see no conceivable way that we can do number two, reduce services. I mean, I just can't see it. I can't see it because we're already short-staffed to begin with. Police department's short-staffed, fire department's short-staffed, parks and recreation, there is none, et cetera, et cetera. So, from a thinking outside the box standpoint, I acknowledge and commend Mr. Fierro for the initiatives, along with Mr. Dale, that we're undertaking. I try to be a positive man. I think it's not too late, and that we will see light at the end of the tunnel, and that 18-19 will be a successful year for our city. But at the end of the day, I'm also realistic at the expenses associated with JPIA, with the pension fund, with our staffing, that again, I mean, how many times can we ask them to come to the plate? I mean, I think we've asked them enough. So I do see an increase in expenses. I do see hiring coming back, yet our revenue streams need to be strong in order for us to move forward. So no pressure, Mr. Fierro, to get revenue in. And for our council, I think we've all been looking for any and all ways to generate additional revenue, because again, we can no longer continue to ask staff to take a hit, to take a hit, to take a hit. I mean, at the end of the day, we can no longer continue to take a hit. We need to move forward with increasing revenue from an economic development standpoint, or looking at outsourcing, because we cannot continue to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. It's just unfair. Sorry if I went off on a tangent. Oh, thank you, by the way.
Mr. Hodge, Mr. Real, anybody?
Give us some optimism, Mr. Figueroa. What are some possibilities of revenue coming in? I know you've mentioned them before, but what are they? Can you mention some?
There are a number of things, Councilman Hodge. Ms. Mayor talked about the closure of two businesses in our city. But at the same time, the things that we're looking at is, besides the aggressive economic development agenda that we've begun to implement for the past 3 months, there is low-hanging fruit that we can look into. I heard the term thinking outside the box. It's about being creative. I mean, sometimes we tend to not take advantage of what this city has to offer with its location geographically. I understand that projects take time to develop, and we can see the benefit of that revenue. We need to continue to invest time in seeing those projects grow and become a reality. But in the meantime, there is that low-hanging fruit that we can look into right away that can help begin to bring in some revenue that can offset some of the figures that were presented today. But it has to be done, as I've mentioned it since day one, in a structured way. There is no one project that's going to solve all this, as we know. We take it a step at a time. Nobody's running here. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we are addressing the matters right away. So if we continue what we have began, we will begin to see those opportunities become realities, and we'll see those reflected, and hopefully, like Mr. Dale said, in next year's presentation by the PUN group, and the continuous work that Ms. Mayor and future leadership in the finance department is going to be presenting to this council and the community.
Thank you.
Mr. Figueroa, you mentioned thinking outside the box. Sorry for interrupting.
No, I'm done.
Two things that I saw as I was reviewing both the midterm report, but more to the fact the audit. Our airport is a cash loser. And again, thinking outside the box, we need to turn our airport into a cash cow in some way, shape, or form or another, be it from private industry, public industry, infusing it, whatever. I know our size limitations do not assist us, but again, thinking outside the box, we need to really look at that and turn that into a cash cow. The other avenue that I didn't discuss, and again, I apologize for hogging the conversation, is I remember Mr. Villa pushed grant writing and grant awards, let's say, through a third party. And we haven't seen much of that. And again, I know you guys are up to your eyeballs in work, but really pushing that agenda, it was basically a pay-as-you-go type of situation. You make money for us, then you get paid a certain percentage. So it really didn't cost us anything to play with them to get money in the door. So again, we haven't seen much in that sense from a reporting standpoint. So again, I understand you are very busy, both of you, but it really, I haven't said this word in a while. It behooves us to move forward and look at the grant writing process as well.
I agree, and one thing that we want to make sure to be clear is that, I mean, priorities right now are focused on what can offset what we just were presented. I mean, there's no other way around it, and we're going to make sure to continue, because we've already began along those lines. We have no time to waste, and I think right now we have, like I mentioned, a structure in place that can enable us to focus and move that agenda. I mentioned it in my presentation on February 21st, the issue with our housing program. And it was brought up rightfully by in our audit presentation, that does linger and affect a lot of what we can do and not do. You offer an additional service, obviously, or an additional opportunity to the community, but at the same time, as we all know, with federal grants, there is an overhead cost that can help offset city expenses. So if we're able to combine a lot of these little things, I mean, they do add up. I mean, and it's no secret, we need the big projects as well. And those are being worked on. This council has approved something along those lines recently. So we are committed. We know what we're here for. We knew why we came. And I'm sure that we will begin to see things. One of the things that I want to highlight is that, like Councilman Real mentioned, let us have our 30 seconds to enjoy the news that for the past 2 years we've expended what we can expend. And we must continue along those lines, considering that we also expect revenues to increase to some of the practices that we're beginning to do in-house.
I'm going to echo a little bit of what Councilman Escobar talked about. And Susan, Mayor, also thank you for always giving it to us straight, I guess, and I want to commend the staff right now for what they're doing, and the council, because as you guys see from the graph that's up there, it's been until lately that the strong leadership has been there with the help of Armando Villa when he came in. You can almost draw the line there when he came in and everything started shifting to the right. I'm going to say to the right side, but to a more fiscal responsible council and management. Again, commending the staff, but also the unions that have taken the hits, and that's always extremely tough for everybody, and they've done it time and time again. Every time we ask, they're the ones taking the hit, and I think Councilman Escobar said it. I think he didn't use that word, but I'm going to use the word unsustainable. I think since the last time the city had financial issues back in 2010, when they started with $5 million overspent. We went from 300 and some employees, we got rid of around 100 employees, and the only thing that's really changing from then to now, seeing how revenues are pretty stagnant over the years. I mean, they go up, a little bit here and there, but in reality, it's they stay stagnant. What ends up happening is we just take hits with our staff, and while they make the effort to help the city situation, the people who really suffer are the citizens. Because the city council has a police department with 20 officers instead of 40 or 50 that we're supposed to. We can only run one ambulance. All these things that we do to make ends meet at the end of the year. Getting loans from our own enterprise fund, and all these, the kicking of the can, I like to call it. It's now, I feel that with this council and this management, that's stopped to a certain degree. We're no longer trying to kick the can and look for tricks to make it another year or 2 years. I think finally the things that should be done will be done. But again, I don't know what else to say other than, to the people of Calexico, they complain that there's, less police and less protection and less fire, everything that they complain. And we understand it up here. I mean, sitting up there, we know it's extremely difficult. We have to do with what we have, and we don't have a lot. This is a problem that needs to be attacked from literally all angles. We're doing better, right? Why? Because we're cutting staff, we're cutting people. That's why we're doing better. But in reality, thanks to Miguel Figueroa now, the revenues are what really has to change. And Calexico has gone from the last 25, 30 years being a city that, and I hear it all the time. I really do, not to make you get a big head, Miguel, but people see that Calexico now is open for business. They're looking at it that way. You know what? It used to be a pain to go get a permit. It used to be, and now that's changing. Maybe not exactly to where we should be, but it's getting there. And thanks to the staff, but it's got to be attacked from the revenue, from the spending, and make sure that policies are also done the right way and the hard decisions are made. So again, just commending everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Just to say that the services for this city are minimal at best. A lot of part-time help is doing the work and lifting the heavy load, and these are all the part-timers that are here for about 6 months, and that's the 100 people. And it's sad to say that we can't offer these people work or a job after they completed their cycle of working with us for about 6 months, and then we either got to cut them loose or find a way to keep them on board. But we are seriously understaffed, as everybody has mentioned before, in all these departments. It's what it is. So we're how high is the water? Well, we're all 6 feet high and rising. We're just above. We've got our nose on top of the water line. We're looking at a way to survive, and we've had, I think, good leadership coming from this end, and we're tightening our belts. We've learned to do with less, but it's a disservice to the city. Doing with less, but it's a disservice. So we're working on that end. And again, thank you, Mrs. Mayor, for coming in. And it's a good report, but no big surprise for us. But Mr. Dale did a good job of finding money, and we're going to close the gap. And we start anew. July 1st is around the corner, so we look at the projections, and we've lost 2 major sales losing pennies, and we're going to lose another outlet with Toys R Us. So we need to find somebody to come in and pick up the slack there. But thank you, and we'll find a way. We're positive. Again, thank you for all your efforts in working with our staff. Thanks. With that, any other comments from Ms. Meyer? Thank you.
I would also like to thank Susan Mayer because, she's been around when it's the roughest times, right? And so she's stuck with the city, and we do appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, item 17. Yeah, we need to make a motion on this resolution.
Make a motion to
accept.
Accept, yeah.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
4-0. Informational items. 17, short-range transit plan, community outreach workshops. Mr. Dale, anybody?
Yeah, there's one in April 23rd, Monday, in Calexico, 4:30 PM to 6:30 PM at the Camarera Memorial Library.
Neighborhood House is having their Board of Directors meeting, and a diaper drive.
Yes.
On April the 19th, so those that wish, I guess these are clean, you gotta go get some
Self-deprecating,
new
I'll be attending, Mayor Pro Tem.
Those two notices. Any future items for down the road? Mr. Hodge, Mr. Real, Mr. Escobar?
Future agenda items, just for the sake of strong leadership and efficiency and stability, I wish the best on both sides, administration and what bargaining units remain for negotiations, that we go as smoothly and quickly as possible so we can maintain the consistency and restore stability to our city. So it's important that we move forward on the negotiations, meet and confer. Thank you.
Future agenda items, I have an appointee of the Police Commission that I need to remove, and I wanted to get that on the agenda.
Remove?
Correct.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Yes.
Now that we have a HR director, I think we brought this up a couple months ago. Congratulations. The employee handbook hasn't been updated for 12 years. So I'm sure that's one of your pending items. If it's not, that's one more to your.
We have discussed
big
that.
list. Sorry, congratulations.
Okay. Thank you. Viva Calexico.
Viva Calexico.